Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from my shotgun shack in the Texas Outback. All right, I have a weird topic to talk about today. So we're going to talk about religious violence or mass shootings or killings of Jews and Christians just in the past month. Okay? So incident number one that we'll talk about is the Jersey City, New Jersey attack on the kosher grocery store. Now, here's what we know about this shooting. I'm going to start at the beginning here because a lot of you have not heard the whole story about the New Jersey shooting. So, an Uber driver disappears, and his body is discovered in the trunk of his car. There is a detective who is assigned to find out what happened to the dead Uber driver. He, for whatever reason, all the details have not been released yet, but he is apparently following the two suspects who shoot up the grocery store. Before they did all that, he's already following them, and he confronts them in a cemetery. Now, I wonder if they intended to go back and get the Uber driver's body and put him into a freshly plowed grave on top of another grave in a cemetery. That's the oldest trick in the book. That's the oldest mafia trick, is if you have a body you need to dispose of, you find where someone's had a recent funeral and they still have mounded up dirt, and you sneak in there at night and dig down in the grave, and you put your body in on top of the other body and cover it all back up like it was, and nobody knows, and no one's going to dig up another person's grave, right? So maybe that's what they were doing. But for whatever reason, they were in a cemetery when they're confronted by this detective who is intentionally following them, investigating the dead Uber driver. And they're now saying that this couple is responsible for the death of the Uber driver as well. But they kill the police officer in the cemetery and then proceed to the Jewish neighborhood to do some more damage. I figure that they're thinking they're busted, they killed a cop, they're going to go to prison, they might as well get as many of their enemies, their perceived enemies, as they can. So one thing about Black Hebrew Israelites is that they hate the Jews. Oh, did I mention that police have released the fact that this man was at least previously associated with Black Hebrew Israelite movement? And they hate Jews because they see them as imposters, as standing in the way of the true Jews, who are all African Americans, Native Americans, or Hispanic people. That all of those people are the true Jews, the people of color, and that the Jews that are what we think of as Jews are actually imposters and not the true Hebrew Israelites. So they have a chip on their shoulder against Jews. Of course, I think as much as Jews, they hate redheaded people. They call us Esau's or Edomites, right? And this is one of the reasons when I made my first video, I got more death threats in my life than I've ever gotten in my whole life, and this whole time of being online or any time, from my first Black Hebrew Israelite video, where I debunked their history, their claims of history, their claims of archaeology, and their claims in the scripture. And they attacked me until I did a DNA test and revealed that I was part Congolese, which means my dad, I always knew, was a man of color, but we thought he was a Native American, and as it turned out, he was an African. And so I have I'm the first generation to pass for white in my family on my dad's side. And so anyway, the shooter who kills the Uber driver, the man and woman that killed the Uber driver, then they kill the police officer, then they go to attack a Jewish neighborhood because of their teachings in the Black Hebrew Israelite world that Jews are imposters. So they first target a Jewish school filled with children, and they go and they try the door. That's why they're parked on the opposite side of the street from the grocery store, because that's where the Jewish school was. The Jewish school was locked down. They're smart. They keep it locked down. And being thwarted there, they turn their attentions across the street to the grocery store. And so I can say that it appears in the video that the man was wearing Black Hebrew Israelite garb. He was dressed in the traditional fringed apron, and I can clearly see that. I couldn't tell from the video whether he had a jihadi beard or not, because that's another thing. Black Hebrew Israelites grow these beards, and not little nice kept. Some of them have nice little kept beards like mine. I need to trim mine. It's getting out of control. But most of them have these big full-length jihadi squared off beards, right? Like they're a Muslim or something, but they're not. It's the part of their Jewish faith, and they wear this. A lot of them wear headdresses, or wraps around their head. You can see them go online and look at them. You can see them preaching their beliefs. And but at any rate, the ones in Dallas here just seem to be preaching that the Bible is only for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and they don't seem to be preaching the hatred that I've heard other groups, like groups in New York and San Diego and San Francisco. Those groups there teach that Jesus is going to come back and kill all the white people, and all the black people are going to do it. All the black people are going to rise up and kill off all the red-headed Esau's and the fake Jews, and they're going to, Jesus is going to have their back helping them, is their argument. And it seems to me like the guy in New York decided to kick it off early, right? Now, the next situation we've got is a guy goes into a rabbi's home. This happened on Saturday night. And they're having a gathering of about, I'm not sure, there was lots. This home was filled with people celebrating a Jewish holiday celebration. When a black man with a jihadi beard, okay, takes a sword and goes into this rabbi's home and proceeds to stab 12 people. Thank you, New York, for not having any right to own guns, because if they had the right to own guns, they might have been able to stop this guy before he knifed up 12 people with a gladius, okay, with a machete sword. And they got this guy alive, and he's got a black Hebrew Israelite beard, okay? Now, does that mean he's one of them? I don't know. He looks like one of them, right? That happens on Saturday, and then Sunday morning, we've got a shooting that could have been much worse. It could have been a mass shooting by a man all dressed in black. And from the grainy video, it looks like he's wearing a black Hebrew Israelite headdress. Now, could he just be Antifa with a mask and a black hoodie? The video's grainy. But to me, it looks like he's wearing the traditional garb of the black Hebrew Israelites. That remains to be seen. It's speculation based on my own opinion of what I saw in the video of the church shooting in Fort Worth on Sunday. This guy with a shotgun comes into the church with this long cloak, and he's got a shotgun down his pants, probably hidden by that apron, if he's one of them. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. It's speculation. I have a right to speculate based on what I saw. What I saw is he ain't dressed like your average guy. If I saw him walking down the street, I'd do a double take, because he's wearing a long flowing black robe of some sort. He's wearing some sort of headdress that comes down the side of his face, right? It's not a hoodie, it's a headdress, right? And this shotgun appears out of nowhere. And I think the two men in question were kind of watching him, but they just never dreamed of what they'd be up against. And the second man to get shot, the man that tried to pull his pistol, he died from not moving. Memorize this if you own a gun. Move, shoot, live. Learn how to shoot while moving. Stop standing in one place and shooting at paper targets. It trains you to be a target in a gunfight, and you die because it's harder to hit a moving target. So the second man that was shot, the man that reached into his, once again, poorly placed pistol in the small of his back. Don't carry behind your hip, y'all. Carry up front or on the side where you can get to it. If you got to reach all the way around there while you're coming out like this, you're going to get drilled. And that's what happened to him. But he was a good man. He put his life on the line for the members of his church. And then what blew me away is in that video is like 10 or 12 of the people in that church, with maybe 300 or 400 people in it, maybe 300 people in that church. At least 10 or 12 of them were carrying guns, and they come out with their pistols. And it was just guns everywhere on this guy. He got shot all to pieces because the third man in the video to engage him, the first two get shot. The third man looked to me to be a uniformed security guard employed by the church there. 20 years ago, it was unheard of to go to church with a gun. And then there was another Fort Worth church shooting. I believe it was the West Ridge Baptist Church, Wedgwood Baptist Church, something like that. And in that shooting, a man that lived down the street from the church, who was just, mental patient, he takes a gun to the youth group gathering and shoots a bunch of teenagers on a Wednesday night. And that kind of changed church in Texas. Anybody that had any doubts, those were removed last year when we had the big church shooting where 26 people were killed down in South Texas. And luckily, a man with a gun stopped that as well. But this shooting in Fort Worth back 20 years ago made all of us start carrying guns. In fact, I was carrying a gun to church, and I hadn't had any permission from the pastor. I was just better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6. So I used to carry in church after that without the permission of the pastor. It was just too sticky to ask his permission, and I didn't care. So I carried anyway. But I went to a new church in Weatherford, and the pastor gave me, well, it was the Devil Fighting Church. If you're a fan of the church, it was the Devil Fighting Church. This pastor hugs me one day, and he puts his hand right on my pistol. Like, I usually stop people from getting around that side of me, but he had big arms, and he just wrapped around, and next thing I know, his hands touch my pistol, and he kind of pulls back and gives me a look. And after church, he makes a beeline off the platform and comes over there and gets me and says, "Is that a pistol I felt on your belt?" And I said, "Yes, sir, it is." And he goes, "Good." He said, "There's a bunch of us in church that carry now, and we just want to put you on the team. We need to know who's carrying and who's not, so we don't get any mistaken identities here. So welcome to the team. We meet every first Tuesday of the month to talk about tactics and defense of the church." And that's what you saw at work in Fort Worth, was that kind of organized defense of the church by the people of the church. And that's why the pastor, after they shot down this intruder in Fort Worth this last Sunday, you can hear the pastor on the microphone saying, "It's all under control. We've taken care of it. It's okay. It's all under control." They planned for it. And other than the guy being slow on the draw and caught off guard, the first guy that drew down on him that got killed for his effort, other than, that, how are you going to avoid that other than just being a better gunfighter? And these people aren't really gunfighters. He could have saved his own life potentially. Now, I'll finish this video off with one little quick story about my recent encounter with someone who appeared to be wearing the outfit of a black Hebrew Israelite. Once again, headdress, apron, typically dressed in black. They like leather. Some of them I've seen wearing black leather vests along with it. I was called to make a delivery out to a man who had a very peculiar name, and often they change their Americanized names into some kind of Hebrew-sounding name with an African edge. And I don't know what this guy's, I can't recall the name, but it was almost impronounceable to me. So when I encounter a name like that, I try not to pronounce it. I just tell them where their order's from, "Hey, I'm delivering food from McDonald's for you. Are you?" And then they say their name. And when I pull up to the address, it's late at night in a bad neighborhood, and I think that Uber knows I'm not afraid to go in bad neighborhoods at night, and so it sends me, it makes sure and funnels all those my way because it knows I'll take them. I'll go into bad neighborhoods, after dark, and so I have one of these calls. And most of the time, it's a family, and the lights are on, and I go up to the front door, and it's like I meet the pets, and I give them their food, and we wish each other happy holidays, and it's all good. But this time, it's a bad neighborhood, no street lights, a guy standing on the corner, or standing on the street in front of the house waiting on me. And he's wearing the black Hebrew Israelite garb. And he's also, that doesn't alarm me near as much as his behavior. So he's got hands deep in the pockets of a hoodie, right? And he's doing this as I pull up. He doesn't, now I pull up and he's on the right, on the passenger side. And so I roll the passenger side window down and he comes up to the window. But most people would bend down and look in the window at me. But he stayed erect, looking in both directions. And he was saying things to me that I could barely hear, forcing me to lean forward and look up at him and be off balance and away from the controls of the vehicle. But he never saw or heard me put the car in park, because I don't do that. I keep the car in drive with my foot on the gas. Foot on the brake, rather. One foot on the brake and one on the gas. Yeah. Doon. I can't drive 55. I'm sorry. I had a Sammy Hagar moment. But so I pull up on there prepared to Sammy Hagar him and leave him in the nothing but the tail lights. But if he gets jiggy or whatever, and it's really concerning me that if he says his name, it's the peculiar name. I tell him I got the food for him. I reach in the bag. I pull the food out. Without ever looking down at me, he just reaches in and takes the bag like this. I felt like he might have been targeting me. Are Uber drivers being targeted because they're available? You know, this story starts in New Jersey with the death of an Uber driver. And it made me go back to this moment where this man acted so peculiar. If you were looking at it the way he was looking both ways like this and not making eye contact with me and watching around, you'd think we were engaged in a drug deal when I was just handing off McDonald's hamburgers to him. But it could be that I could find myself on the front lines of what might end up being some kind of race war. If you talk to members of the Jewish community in New York, they're saying that for some reason it appears that African Americans have declared war on the Jewish community in New York. And you've got more than a dozen attacks on Jewish gatherings and synagogues, and Jewish people, especially if they're dressed in Jewish garb, are being attacked by African Americans and being called fake Jews. They're being beaten, and they've got more than a dozen occurrences just in the month of December in the New York area. And they're saying for some reason they feel like they're under attack. So tell me what you think. What's going on? Are these all coincidences? Hey, I could be wrong about the way the guy was dressed in Fort Worth, right? But I'm not wrong about what happened in Jersey City, and I'm not wrong about a crazed man with a jihadi beard, an African-American man attacking a Jewish gathering in New York on Saturday night either. Tell me whether you think this is just a few random crazies or whether or not we're dealing with some kind of organized attack by Black Hebrew Israelites or people who have been affected by that teaching. Tell me what you think in the comment section. And God save our republic.